Good evening, and you're very welcome back to Around the Grounds here at Finalwhistle.ie. On this Saturday evening, we have plenty of action to digest from the Women's National League and just one fixture from the SSE Airtricity Premier Division. We'll begin our action from the Women's National League. Actually, we won't. We have just managed to get Luke Delaney back into the group, back in here to our show. Luke, of course, was covering the game for us this evening between Sligo Rovers and Shelburne. Of course, they were in action at the showgrounds. I'm across live to him to get a match report on all of the drama from Sligo this evening.
Hey, Diarmuid, and I think I've just got the breath back after what really was a thrilling 90 minutes. One of the best games that I've seen all season. And it ends Sligo Rovers 3, Shelburne 1. But I think the score really didn't reflect how the game went. And it was Shelburne who did take an early lead after just 5 minutes with a deflected strike from McManus on the edge of the area, just crawling just past McGinty in the goal. And he was kind of scrambling back to get it, but he couldn't get there in time. And it really was advantage to Damien Duff's men early on. But from there, Shells was a very impressive start. They were pressing from the front, but then they started to drop back as soon as they scored and kind of invite the pressure on them. And with a side against Sligo, obviously with the likes of Max Mata, Aidan Keenan, all very willing runners, they did struggle against that. And that's kind of how the equaliser came about. Will Fitzgerald, very impressive surging run through the middle of the park, and he teed up Max Mata, who calmly finished off the left foot in past Brendan Clark in the goals, and that made it 1-1. And then it was just under 15 minutes later, they did take the lead. And it was a real moment of excellence from Aidan Keenan, and kind of similar enough to Will Fitzgerald, a really menacing run through the middle of the park. Played a lovely 1-2 with Max Mata on the edge of the area before dinking it over Clark, and it really was a fantastic goal from Keenan. And that sent the sides into half-time with scores at 2-1. From there, at the start of the second half, wasn't as exciting as the first half, but that's the end of the game really made up for it. And with just under 15 minutes to go, just a routine you'd expect catch for McGinty in the Sligo goals. Jack Moylan's cross came into him, but he did spill it. And I think on first inspection, it might have looked like the ball was over the line. Obviously, Shelburne players weren't impressed really with the decision not to give it, but they kept going again, and McGinty really got away with that one. And then shortly after that, it did look like Shelburne did have an equaliser from Jad Hakiki, who scored. The referee went back to the halfway line, players celebrating. But moments later, the linesman put up his flag. And then after consulting with the referee for a couple of minutes, it was given for offside, but not against Hakiki himself. It was a judge that Sean Boyd was kind of standing in the line of vision of McGinty in the goal, and it was given for offside. And then a couple of minutes later, it was Sean Boyd again who was heavily involved. It was a brilliant knockdown from a long ball straight into the path of Jack Moylan, who finished excellently. But yet again, the flag went up, and I'll expect that Damien Duff won't be too happy with how things were going. And just as he thought anything couldn't get any worse in the dying moments, Will Fitzgerald broke down the pitch again, went under the challenge of Brendan Clark in the goal. And I think after looking at a couple of replays of it, it was a harsh decision to give a penalty, but that didn't affect Aidan Keenan, and he dislodged the ball into the top corner, sending Brendan Clark the wrong way. And it really was an excellent 3 points for Sligo Rovers, but Shelburne, they'll be feeling like they could have travelled home with at least a point.
And thank you, Luke, for that report from all of the action from the showgrounds this evening. It was a 3-1 victory for Sligo Rovers. We'll take a look at the league table and just see where, of course, those teams are sat following that result this evening. Sligo Rovers, of course, remaining in 5th place with the 3 points. That sees them remain 3 currently behind St. Pat's, and of course they have a game in hand as well. And we'll take a look at the statistics coming from that division as well, and looking at the top goal scorers, as Luke mentioned, Aidan Keenan netting a brace this evening. He now goes level with Jamie McGonigal for 10 goals apiece this season, with Owen Doyle and Will Patching behind them with 9, and it's Pat Hooban with 8 goals as well, 3rd place so far. And looking at the clean sheet stats as well, no goalkeeper managing to keep a clean sheet in the game tonight. So it's Joseph Anang with 10 clean sheets for the season. That remains the front runner, with Nathan Shepherd behind him with 9, and Alan Manis in 3rd place with 8 for this season. Now we have more action to come. Currently, we have 4 more games down for decision. They were coming from the Women's National League today. We'll start with the earliest game of all, which was bottom of the table Treaty United hosting top of the table Shelburne at the Markets Field. Reporting is Jack Joy.
It was Treaty United 0, Shelburne 10 at the Markets Field this evening in the Women's National League. Shelburne league leaders of the WNL, of course, were probably always expected to go into this game and take away a big win over Treaty, but probably no one could have predicted a 10-goal win this evening. In 5 previous fixtures with Treaty, Shelburne have won all since Treaty debuted in the WNL. Their smallest winning margin across those 5 previous games was 5, and their biggest was 6, which was last October. But today they scored 6 in the first half alone and added another 3 in the second half as they really overran Treaty at home. A fairly poor Treaty side that have just 1 point all season, but Shells were at it from the very beginning. Jim McQuinn opened scoring on the 3rd minute, and that was soon followed by a Leah Doyle goal from the edge of the box. Right at goal, she put it past Trish Fennelly in the 9th minute to put Shells up to under the 10-minute mark. As well as being totally outclassed, Treaty had some very bad luck. They only named 5 substitutes as they're coping with a lot of injuries at the moment, but they had 2 injuries following those 2 goals. Shannon Parbat in the heart of their defence was injured before 20 minutes, and her replacement, Ezra Kengel, was injured soon after that, and it saw a lengthy stoppage in the game. But that didn't discourage Shells, and they, as play resumed around the 40-minute mark, they scored again. This time it was an own goal, though, from a Treaty player. Noelle Murray's cross went to the far post, and Emma Deegan chested it down, hoping to control it, but it went into the back of her own net to take the game to 3-0. It was a Noelle Murray show after that. 43rd minute, she got on the end of a good passing move by Shells to make it 4-0. She hammered her shot into the far left corner past Fennelly, and 3 minutes later she won a penalty, and she put that away as well to take Shells 5-0 ahead. Just before half-time then, Pearl Slattery headed home to make it 6-0 before the break. Shells made 3 subs at half-time, but that didn't stop their momentum. Gemma Quinn was excellent all game as well, and she hit 2 excellent volleyed efforts in the 58th minute and the 64th to achieve her hat-trick. And I suppose not to be better than Noelle Murray, soon took action, and she was already sitting on 2 goals, and in the 83rd minute she went in on goal again, and just before full time she scored her 4th to make it 10-0 to Shells in total. So it ended at the Markets Field, Treaty United 0, Shelburne 10. Shelburne looking all the, I suppose, like champions already when compared to this Treaty side.
And that, of course, was Jack Joy reporting earlier on Shelburne's massive 10-0 win over Treaty United. Next, we go to the capital, where Bohemians were in action against Sligo Rovers at Dalymount Park. And reporting live from Dalymount Park earlier today was Conal Collier.
It started in sunshine here in Dalymount Park in a heat wave, but just as the referee, Sarah Dias, sounded the final whistle for a 2-1 victory for Bohemians, the heavens opened as if to shed a tear maybe for Sligo Rovers. But we won't go too much into that. It was a tentative start as 7th played 8th. And Bohemians created the first chance, but it took all of 21 minutes when Abby Brophy brought a good save out of Amy Mahan. Orno O'Dowd was solid in the centre of the Sligo defence, and Lauren Bowles was also strong. It looked like it was going to end scoreless at half-time, but just in the 43rd minute, Erica Burke capitalised on hesitancy in the Sligo Rovers defence and sent her team in leading 1-0 at half-time. Sligo tried to get back into contention early in the second half. Emma Hansbury had a good chance, but she was blocked by Rachel Kelly and the rebound was sent over. However, Gemma McGuinness got Sligo Rovers back on level terms with 20 minutes remaining when she finished well in the bottom left-hand corner. Parity didn't last for too long, and Bowles were back in front when, I suppose, super sub you could call her, Aoife Robinson. She crossed the ball in from the right and it crept in at the far post to give Bowles the lead again. Outstanding for Bowles, as I saw it throughout the game in defence, was Lisa Murphy. So it was a deserved victory for Bohemians as they move up to 7th. Sligo moved down to 8th, and it finished 2-1 at Dalymount Park.
And that, of course, was Conal live there from Dalymount Park earlier this evening. Next, we go down to Wexford, where Wexford youths were in action against Galway Women's FC at Ferrycarrig Park, and watching the action was Samuel Mansfield.
Wexford lose ground on leaders Shelburne as they're held to a 1-1 draw at home in Ferrycarrig Park this evening by a resilient Galway women's side. The two defenders in Lobato and Sinnott traded goals late, but honestly a draw was a fair result. Wexford started the better of the team as both teams decided to get a feel for the game early on, both returning to competitive action for the first time in 3 weeks after the mid-season break. Youth hit the bar early through Murphy, but it was tipped onto the Barbara Ronay in the Galway net, and that was the first of the early efforts until maybe about the half-hour mark when Galway came back into the game a little bit. Lobato had a close-range finish from a scramble in the box, but it was well saved by the Wexford goalkeeper. Molloy had a free kick destined for the top corner just before the break, but Ronayne once more saved well. And that was it before the break, really. And again, neither side created much in the first half, and the halftime score was Wexford 0, Galway 0. Galway got the first chance of the second half through O'Flaherty as she worked her way into the box through some fantastic dribbling, but forced Williams into a save. And that was, again, the only real action of the second half until Kearney and Rossiter were both injured in separate incidents and had HIAs done. Kearney had to come off later, but Rossiter continued, but that broke up the game quite a bit. The first goal of the game came from Lobato on the 88th minute as she headed home off a free kick that was looped into the box, and she thought she had given her Galway side all 3 points. But that wasn't to be the case, as in added time, Sinnott popped up and smashed low hard into the bottom corner off of a corner in the 93rd minute, I believe it was, to split the spoils here in Ferrycarrig Park. The final score was Wexford 1, Galway 1.
And that, of course, was Sam Mansfield's report earlier on Wexford and Galway Women's FC. Final game of the evening came from Athlone at the Athlone Town Stadium, where Athlone took on Cork City. Reporting is Sam Curtin.
And Emily Corbett wonder goal was the difference today as Athlone Town fought past a dogged Cork City at Athlone Town Stadium. Now, the opening 10 minutes or so were played at a really frantic pace, with both sides struggling to keep possession as Cork played in Athlone's away strip today, interestingly enough, due to unforeseen and exceptional circumstances, according to the club. Once the game eventually settled, though, it was Athlone who had the better of the play. Julia Keenan, in particular, was very, very impressive for the hosts, while Lauren Singleton was the main star for City in the first half, as the visitors were relying on her for her pace down the right wing, causing the Athlone defence all sorts of problems. Laura Ryan and Kelly Brennan had the best chances of the half for the hosts, with Maria O'Sullivan doing really well on both occasions to deny them. Orla Deasy had his best chance as well just before the break, but to Coombs' credit in the Athlone goal, once again, an excellent exhibition of goalkeeping from her today to deny one of the City's form players this season. The second half started pretty much the same as the first, but the hosts finally got their goal on the hour mark through Emily Corbett. It all started with a fantastic move down the right-hand side, followed by a brilliant cross from Jess Hennessy, which fell to Corbett, who struck it first time on the volley, going over the head of Maria O'Sullivan in the City goal to put the hosts in front. Now, City, to their credit, didn't drop their heads and could have been level 5 minutes later. Lauren Singleton free kick was spilled by Niamh Coombs in the Athlone Town goal, with the ball inches away from going over the line. In the end, though, Athlone held on the last 10 minutes with their game management in particular very, very impressive, and they claimed the 3 points to move into third place in the Women's National League. So it finished full time, Athlone Town 1, Cork City 0.
And that, of course, was Sam Curtin reporting on Athlone Town's 1-0 win over Cork City this evening. We'll take a look at the results from all of the Women's National League fixtures today. Of course, Shelburne with a 10-0 win over Treaty United in the early game. Bohemians picking up a 2-1 home win over Sligo Rovers. Wexford and Galway sharing a 1-1 scoreline, while Athlone picked up the 1-0 win over Cork City. And taking a look at the league table, Shelburne now are 7 points clear at the top of the league table over Wexford. Athlone up into third place as Peamount United don't play until Monday evening. And of course, it still remains Cork and Treaty down at the bottom half of the league table. Looking at the top goal scorer statistics coming from the Women's National League as well, Anya O'Gorman remains the top goal scorer with 13 goals for the season. Emily Corbett goes up to 12, having got on the score sheet this evening, while Ella Malloy and Stephanie Roach are both on 10 goals in third place, respectively. And of course, Noel Murray picking up a hat-trick today now sees her up to 9 goals for the season. Looking at the clean sheet statistics as well, it's Amanda Budden who is running clear of the rest of the opposition. She has 10 clean sheets to her name so far this season. Niamh Coombs and Eve Badana with 6 apiece in second place, and Abigail Ronayne with 5 now in third place. We'll take a look at the fixtures that we have coming up over the next week. Now, of course, there is one game down for decision tomorrow, Monday evening, in the Women's National League, with Peamount United taking on DLR Waves. That will finish up our week. But then we have first round FAI Women's Cup action coming next weekend. DLR Waves take on fellow league opposition in the form of Treaty United next Saturday at 4 p.m, while Peamount welcome non-league Finglas United to PRL Park for a 5 p.m. kickoff. Galway Women's FC are up in the capital to face Bohemians at Dalymount Park, and the kickoff there is at 6 p.m. And then on Sunday, 2 more games as well. Athlone Town are on the road to Dublin as they take on Whitehall Rangers. And the other tie of the day is the meeting of Cork City and Letterkenny outfit Bonagee United, another non-league team looking to claim a big scalp in the opening round of the Cup. And of course, both of those games kick off at 2 p.m. And of course, we will be back as well next Thursday. Starting next Thursday, we have action from the Premier Division. Of course, we'll be back on Friday as well. But action returns next Thursday in the Premier Division, where UCD welcome Bohemians for the Dublin Derby at the Belfield Bowl. Then on Friday, just 2 fixtures due to European commitments elsewhere. Shelburne head back to Tolka Park after the disappointing result this evening. They host struggling Finn Harps, while it's the Loud Derby in the other game of the night as Drogheda United host Dundalk at Head in the Game Park. So that concludes all of our action, of course, from this evening. We'll be back on Monday evening for another episode of Around the Grounds. Hoping to see you then. Have a lovely rest of your weekend, and we'll chat to you next time. Goodbye.